Each episode of Gravity Falls is well known to have tons of secret messages and ciphers hidden throughout. For example, at the very end of each episode, a string of seemingly random characters can be seen. When decrypted, these messages often turn out to be some sort of joke or reference to something that happened during the episode, or even something that will happen in an upcoming episode. Series creator Alex Hirsch is the one who creates all the ciphers and usually includes them at the very end of production. The cryptograms uses quite a few different encryption methods. First we have the Caesar cipher, which in this case offset the alphabet by 3 characters. So A becomes D, B becomes E, C becomes F, and so on. The next one is called Atbash cipher, and it simply reverses the alphabet. Then we have the A1Z26 cipher, which replaces each character in the alphabet with the corresponding number of its position. So A becomes 1 and Z becomes 26, thereof the name as well. The Vigenère cipher uses a random word as a key to encrypt the message. So, say the message we want to encrypt is Lemino watches Gravity Falls. We then pick a random keyword, so let's say Dipper. We repeat this keyword until it matches the length of the message, like so, and then use something called the Vigenère square. The first letter of the message is L, which means the row that begins with L. And the first letter of the keyword string is D, which means the column that begins with D. Row L and column D intersect at O, so the first letter of the cryptogram is O. Then you repeat this process for each letter, and just like that, you have a secret message. If you want clues to solve the many ciphers, they can actually be found in the opening sequence of every episode. If you play the intro in reverse, you'll hear someone whisper something. And it's not always the same, as the whisper changes as the ciphers change in the show. Oh, and you can also see Bigfoot if you pause at the right frame. If you ever thought Regular Show, Adventure Time and Gravity Falls seemed a bit similar at times, it's not that strange considering that the 3 creators all know each other. J.G. Quintel, Pendleton Ward and Alex Hirsch all went to Cal Arts together and also worked on the Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack together before creating their own respective shows. When Alex Hirsch and his friends were still in school at Cal Arts, they knew a guy named Jesus Chambreau. They knew he was a few years older than them, but not his exact age. He jokingly became this sort of mysterious person that they knew, but at the same time kinda didn't. This brought on the inspiration to create the character Zeus in Gravity Falls. Grunkle Stan is also based on a real person, namely Alex's grandfather, also named Stan. Even Dipper and Mabel are loosely based on Alex and his twin sister Ariel. For example, just like Mabel in the show, Alex's sister used to love boy bands, had an assortment of vibrant sweaters, and was in general quite goofy and crazy as a child. Throughout the show, you might have noticed a number showing up again and again. The number 618. This is the birthday of Alex Hirsch and his twin sister. Some examples are the Mystery Shack's address, every cash register you can find. The first page of Journal 3 is dated June 18. When Bill gets angry during one episode, you'll see a bunch of symbols flashing inside his eye. The 3rd, 4th and 5th are Thai numerals that spell out 6, 1 and 8. Even the main production code for each episode begins with this number. The creator has even appeared as himself a few times. In the opening sequence, the bottom half of his face can be seen in one of the photos. He's seen riding a unicycle in one episode known simply as Alex the Clown. In one episode, a photo of him can be seen with the text Who written in red, and in another he appears on the front cover of a magazine. The name Dipper comes from acne. Well, sort of, at least. When Alex Hirsch went to high school, there was a kid with extreme amounts of acne, and he took pleasure in imagining that the acne was stars, and thus mapped out constellations between them. One day, the kid supposedly had a perfect cluster that looked like the Big Dipper on his forehead, and thus the Dipper got his name and even the constellation itself in the form of a birthmark on his forehead. The name Dipper is just a nickname though, and Dipper's real name has never officially been revealed, but Quentin Tremblay in the show calls him Roderick, and writer Jeff Rowe has said that his real name is Lamanic, but it's unclear if it was simply a joke or not. Many characters in the show have some form of symbol that is in some way related to them. For example, Mabel has a rainbow with a star on her most frequently used shirt. Dipper has a blue pine tree on his hat. Stan has a yellow crescent shape on his vest. Robbie has a red bleeding heart with stitches on his hoodie, and Zeus has the iconic question mark on his shirt. These 5 symbols can all be found within the so-called Bill Cipher Wheel. It's displayed very briefly at the end of the opening sequence as well as within Journal 2. The other 5 symbols are a bit more ambiguous. The glasses are all but confirmed to represent Stan's brother Ford, also known as the author of the journals. The bag of ice could perhaps be a reference to Dipper, Wendy or any of her friends, as Dipper has been made to fetch ice for them on several occasions. But as Dipper and Robbie already have symbols on the wheel and Wendy's friends are quite minor characters, it's at least most likely a reference to Wendy. The star is most likely a reference to Gideon Gleeful, but could also be a reference to his father, Bud Gleeful. The 6-fingered hand is obviously a symbol for the journals, but the author Ford Pines already has a symbol on the wheel, so this is a bit of a mystery so far. Maybe it's simply a reference to the journals themselves. I mean, there's nothing to say that the symbols has to represent a person. The llama has so far been seen off one of Mabel's sweaters and on a painting inside Northwest Mansion, which could reference really anyone in the Northwest family. But again, as Mabel already has a symbol on the wheel and most of the Northwest family are minor characters, it's most likely a reference to Pacifica. There's tons of theories out there as to what this could mean and who the symbols are supposed to represent, but so far this is all we can say for certain. In the episode Dreamscaperers, Gideon falls to his knees and begins chanting some incomprehensible phrase over and over again. If you play this scene in reverse, you'll hear what he's actually saying. Backwards message. Both Dipper and Mabel were born at the end of the summer in 1999. In the show, they are both 12 years old, and as the show takes place over the course of one single summer, it means their childhood will come to an end with the end of the series. Gravity Falls creator said that summer used to feel endless to him when he was a child, so the length of the summer in Gravity Falls is more emotional than logical. It's supposed to illustrate one long, insane, seemingly eternal summer before they have to return home, leaving behind not only Gravity Falls but also their childhood. At the beginning of 1999, 2 game developers named Min Lee and Jess Cliff wanted to create a game centered on the conflict between terrorism and counter-terrorism. Eventually, they decided to create a mod for the recently released game Half-Life. On June 19, 1999, the first public beta was released, and the gaming community absolutely loved it. So much so that the 2 developers didn't even have to make any maps themselves, because right from the beginning, fans would simply submit their own through the official website. Popular fan-created maps like Dust, Siege, Nuke, among others, became essential parts of the game's early development. In other words, Counter-Strike was a major success. Valve, the creators of Half-Life, quickly took an interest in the mod, and by beta version 4 began assisting the developers. By the end of 2000, Valve had actually hired the developers and released Counter-Strike as a standalone game. The franchise quickly grew in popularity to become one of the most popular first-person shooters on the market. Even today, the original Counter-Strike is among the most popular games on Steam, with the most recent installment, Global Offensive, at the very top. it's possible that the Counter-Strike series is a prequel to the Left 4 Dead franchise. You see, a few areas and maps in the Left 4 Dead games can also be found in Counter-Strike Global Offensive. The maps are of course remade, but the resemblance is still quite obvious at times. These overlaps can be found throughout the game, and it makes you wonder if the two series are actually part of the same universe. I mean, if this was any other game developer, we would be calling them lazy, but hey, it's Valve, so... Yay! So the question is this just asset recycling or actual hints towards something more? Much like the arcade version of Half-Life 2, Counter-Strike Neo is the arcade version of Counter-Strike. Released sometime in 2003, the game is only available in Japan and is some form of futuristic shooter with cyborgs and anime-looking characters and yeah, basically a reskinned version of the game made to appeal to a Japanese audience. 3 other spin-off titles has been made as well, titled Counter-Strike Online 1 and 2 and Counter-Strike Nexon Zombies. In 2009, a small Counter-Strike tournament between the two Russian teams Virtus Pro and Force was held in Russia. The event promised a night of competitive gaming between two highly ranked esport teams, but the sponsors of the event had a slightly different idea. They decided to make things a little more interesting by secretly inviting a couple of strippers to see if the players would get distracted. The women did all they could, but the competition went on as usual and the players seemed completely unfazed. Well, maybe not completely. I guess Counter-Strike players are just really dedicated to the sport. The names of some of the bots in the games are actually named after real people. For example, on hard difficulty there's a bot named Gabe as a homage to Gabe Newell. There's also a bot named Dave after the creator of maps like Dust, Dust 2 and Cobble. In expert mode, 2 bots can be found named Min and Cliff as a reference to the original developers. On normal, there's a bot named Chris, who's named after the creator of maps like Aztec, Inferno and Frantic. Has a player in a game ever made you so angry that you wanted to actually kill that person in real life? Back in 2010, a man in France decided to play some Counter-Strike. One particular match ended with him being killed in a knife fight. The man got so angry by this that he decided to spend the next 7 months tracking this guy down. When he finally found out who he was and where he lived, he traveled to his house, and when he opened the door, he stabbed him in the chest with a knife. Luckily for the victim, he missed his heart by a few centimeters, so he survived the attack. But seriously, how do you go 7 months without thinking, you know what, maybe I'm overreacting here, maybe I'm just overreacting a bit, maybe I should think this through? No? 7 months still doing this? Okay. On the highly popular map Dust 2, you can find this piece of graffiti that reads Goose. This isn't exactly a secret since the area is often referred to as just Goose. But not everyone knows why, though. Goose is actually a reference to one of the creators of the original mod, Min Lee, whose online nickname is Gooseman. In 2007, a student at a school in Texas was suspended simply because he created a Counter-Strike map based on his school. This happened in the wake of the Virginia Tech shooting where 32 people were killed. Because of the heightened sense of fear caused by this, schools around the country were on high alert for any suspicious activity. So when teachers realized that a student had created a level in a game where the objective is to fight terrorists and planting bombs, things got out of hand pretty quickly. Police got involved and it was seen as some sort of minor act of terrorism, but the boy was never actually arrested. He was, however, kicked out of the school and was forced to transfer to a new one, all because of some poor timing and a harmless map in a video game. All the radio commands and dialogue heard in each installment
Bomb has been defused. Bomb has been planted. Go, go, go! Affirmative. Okay, let's go.
Was recorded by co-creator Jess Cliff. It wasn't until Global Offensive that each faction received their own unique voice actors.
I'm blind! I can't see anything! Quit screwing around!
I will guard the bomb site. Going to the bomb site.
I see them. I can see them. I see our enemy. Nice! Nice shot, man!
Thus replacing most of the originals. But not all, though. For example, the final messages like
Terrorists win.
or
Counter-terrorists win.
still remain. In Counter-Strike Source on the map Inferno, there's a room dubbed the Boiler Room, or just Boiler for short. In Global Offensive, they either forgot or chose not to include this room, and players quickly noticed. So in late 2014, Valve updated the game to include this boiler. This created a minor outcry within the community, as players thought it was kinda strange that Valve would update something as trivial as this, while still not fixing many bugs in the game. This escalated even further when the map received yet another update, where they removed the boiler again and instead placed it here, in this pickup truck. This turn of events quickly turned into a sort of running joke or meme, if you will, and the boiler has since been found on other maps as well.